Okay, you tell me when
we're live now. Hold on
Oh,
1 second.
welcome everybody. While Robin sets up Instagram, thanks for joining us on this sweltering Wednesday afternoon.
We are all set on Instagram. So, folks, if you're watching us live or you want to watch us live, you can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think those are all of our live feeds, right, Dan? Did I cover them?
A couple Twitter accounts, yes.
Yes. A couple Facebook accounts.
A couple Facebook accounts, a couple Twitter accounts. YouTube, right? Can't they watch us live on YouTube?
Live on YouTube, live on Instagram, all the things.
The usual suspects.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just Dan and I joining you today. Adam is away on vacation in Poland, so we miss you, Adam. Have a good trip. Bring me back a present. And you will join us again next week. We have a special guest coming up today, John Kaufman from Saratoga Springs Politics. And we've got lots to talk about because last night was a
city council meeting.
That's right. Also, I'm just going to have a technical note here and say, Dan, we need to buy you a ring light.
I'm home. Kids are at school, so I'm upside down. I do have a ring light. It's at my office.
I too am home with my 4 children, which I also actually meant to say at the top of the show because there may be some mild interruption. They all know that they're not supposed to come in the living room right now, but who knows what will happen.
Listen, 7 minutes ago, I was outside with a black lab doing his duty. Okay. So the fact that I'm here and you want a ring light, huh?
Yeah, I do. No. Well, let's talk about so I wasn't here last week, but we do have a lot to talk about from last night. Should we just get right into it?
Dive into it.
And should we introduce John and have him come in and start discussing with us? I know he has some specific issues he wants to touch on, but
yeah, and he's well prized with what he was probably watching the city council meeting as well.
Yeah, and while I was watching it, I was also cleaning and parenting, so I wouldn't mind another person helping me fill in the gaps here. John Kaufman, are you there, sir?
I'm here. Do you have me?
We have you. Welcome.
Okay. iPhone, this is a bit of a challenge, but okay. So I'm ready.
If you just want to set it up against something, John, I don't know if you're currently holding it.
Okay, well, I'd like to start off with the fact that there was this chaos over the hiring of an attorney to represent Stacey Connors and Dylan Moran.
Yes, John,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. We're going to just, if you don't mind, start with a quick public comment, touch on public comment for a minute, and then dive into that. So, because I want to kind of tee it up and let people know how it started.
Okay.
So, public comment, but there weren't too many speakers last night. Any standouts for you guys, John or Dan?
No, I missed public comment. I caught most of the meeting, but I missed the beginning.
Okay. Well, I think we only had probably 7 or 8 people comment. There was no one specific issue that people were really hyped up on. 2 people, Mary Beth Larm and Dave Bushin, were a bit critical of some of the council members and kind of this sense they got that they were kind of campaigning at the city council table, which is really something that shouldn't happen. And so that was kind of one of the commonalities of the folks doing public comment. There was no one from Saratoga BLM that I'm aware of there. And so it's just kind of some of the usual suspects that we tend to hear from on a somewhat regular basis. But there was one person there talking about short-term rentals, and that was about it. And then before we got into any real business, Commissioner Songvi asked for a moment to discuss an issue that, John, I believe is the one you're bringing up, which is that a couple weeks ago, I'm not recalling the exact timeline, but a couple weeks ago, the city and specifically Dylan Moran, Stacey Connors, and a few others were all subpoenaed over this on-call pay scandal that has been kind of playing itself out since really the winter at this point.
Yep.
And so in the context of that subpoena, apparently there was a $49,000 legal bill that was submitted to the finance office on behalf of Commissioner Moran and his deputy, Stacey Connors. Is that correct, guys?
Yep.
Okay. And so Commissioner Songvi...
Say the total again. I'm sorry, say the total again.
It was $49,000.
Okay, because I saw it on John's blog, and I heard you just say it again, and okay, wow.
Which I would just like to put that in context for a minute and just be selfish here for a moment. the bill that my attorney incurred for representing me when I was subpoenaed by the Attorney General, which was criticized by our former Mayor Kim at every possible opportunity, was a fraction of $49,000. I don't think, topped 20 even. So it's just, to me, like just the height of hypocrisy here when I have one of the commissioners that was, very critical and, joined in the party in terms of like talking about the legal bill that I incurred, when I was like so extraordinarily careful with that attorney's time and so cognizant of the fact that I was spending taxpayer money, that I would keep our conversations as short as humanly possible and as infrequent as humanly possible. But also, this was an attorney who his hourly rate was competitive with other attorneys that specialized in his area. And so I just, to have this $49,000 bill come out of the blue is wild to me.
Out of the blue, sorry to interrupt you, Robin. Out of the blue is a big problem, right? And John, you wrote about that.
Yeah, and John, we'd love for you to weigh in on this, because it gets a little confusing in terms of how these attorneys are kind of assigned to a council member if they are subject to a subpoena or legal action and they need representation. I know in my instance, it wasn't like I went out seeking an attorney, signed a retainer agreement, and then just told the city. That's not how it happened. It was approved by the city council, and the hourly rates and information about my attorney and his firm and everything, that was all approved by the council, which is important because, you want to make sure that you have the right attorney, but also that taxpayers aren't paying some absurd inflated cost or are paying for an attorney who doesn't specialize in the correct area, or, so on and so forth. But in this instance, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, it appears this $49,000 invoice has already been incurred, meaning the attorney was just retained directly by the people involved. And I'm very confused by that.
Well, you should be. Excuse me. Let's just start with the fact that neither Dylan Moran nor Manita Sangvi showed up for the pre-agenda meeting.
Correct.
At which point, I mean, a lot of the questions could have been answered because we are operating in the semi-dark here. I mean, I have heard rumors, pretty sound rumors about stuff, but so, and Anita, there's a resolution which I sent you a copy of.
Yes.
This gets even more bizarre because the resolution, as it is written, looks like, there it is. If you readers can probably have trouble reading it, but what's happening here, and this is unprecedented, is the city is going to pay Dylan Moran and Stacy Connors, not the lawyer, $49,900 and some dollars. Okay, no one has ever heard of this, and this is probably because they went out and did this on their own in a way. And by the way, Mike Brandy is apparently going to be suing over this to get this money. So,
if I can interrupt you, John, this is also a way to keep secret the details that would be public record otherwise.
Exactly. And Manita claims that she tried to put the bill up, but there was a glitch in the software. Well, let me tell you, I've talked to a number of people at City Hall. There is no glitch. Okay. And in addition to that, she added an item on her agenda where at 644 for amending the city's purchasing procedures. She sent an email. Why didn't she send an email with this invoice, the one that she couldn't get up? Okay?
I was just going to say, like, not to poke holes in all of this, because I do know that they've had challenges in terms of finding someone to run the IT department. That position has been vacant for a very long time. I'm not sure if it's filled yet. I know that they've transitioned.
It is still vacant.
It is still vacant. So they don't have anyone who's running the IT department. I know they transitioned the software that they use for the agenda. I know they transitioned the software that they use for emails. However, I would just like to say that if there was an invoice that needed to be circulated to the city council, we still have something called a printer, and you could simply print it and give it to the individual commissioners and mayors prior to the meeting. That would take, I'm going to guess, 5 to 7 minutes in total. So I don't really like excuses like there was a glitch in the system just don't really resonate with me personally. And also, it was not the only time that like a glitch in the system was blamed for the lack of communication or for something not being available. And so I think if that actually is the case and there are these problems in the systems as they're transitioning them over, they should put out something to the public saying, hey, if you're trying to communicate with, City Hall from this period to this period, we're transitioning our email systems. And if you're having an issue, please call this number. If that had been done, and then this was kind of cited as a reason why, we didn't have an agenda item or that communication didn't happen, it would resonate a little bit more. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, as they say, she emailed to her colleagues something that she wanted done. Okay. Why couldn't she at least email it? Because I can tell you, as of this morning, I know at least 2 members of that council who still have not had the privilege of seeing this invoice. And you'll notice in this resolution, they don't mention who the lawyer is that they've hired. Okay. Right. They don't mention any information about his hourly or her hourly rate. There's nothing there. I can tell you that there is a pretty guaranteed story out there that the lawyer is a top lawyer from Manhattan, and that the city will be paying this lawyer. Get ready, guys. $1,250 an hour. That's what he's charging for his legal work. I can understand why neither Manita nor Dylan wants this information to be out, but then they ended up pulling the item from this resolution that you're looking at from the agenda. So we don't know any of this stuff. We don't know who's being subpoenaed. We don't know what the nature of this is. I mean, it's just stunning.
First of all,
I have a quick question, if I could throw out to you, especially you, Robin, because you were on the city council. Is there, when I was a state trooper, if you found out you were getting sued, the attorney general would generally represent you unless there was a conflict, and there was a process to get attorney general representation, or if the AG was conflicted, to get a private attorney approved. Is there a process within city government to do such a thing?
So yes, okay, so this is where it gets like fuzzy, because there is a process that we went through when I needed representation from the city, and it was that we were subpoenaed. The city attorney also received the subpoena. Then I waited for the city attorney to tell me who was going to be representing me. But that was all then voted on by the city council, where, the attorney's hourly rate, about their practice, who they were, it was all detailed, and that was approved by the city council in a very similar fashion to when you put out an RFP, a request for proposals. Like, so for example, what's confusing to me here is that if Commissioner Moran, we lost John there for a sec. Hopefully he'll be back.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
We can hear you.
So, yeah, we can hear you. So with Commissioner Moran, if he was going to go out and seek legal representation, what's confusing to me is why it wouldn't be done the way that you have to do all requests for proposals when it comes to attorneys. He would have to go get quotes from at least 3 different people to show that the rates were competitive, and then show which one he chose and submit that all to the city so they could see that there was no conflict of interest with who was being hired, and also that the person's rate was in line with other attorneys, with that expertise. So my first reaction,
this was an established written policy within city government?
Yeah. I mean, yes, it is. I mean, in terms of RFPs, yeah, it absolutely is. And so I'm like, like John said, I just feel like we're totally in the dark here because I'm just so confused as to how or why Stacey Connors or Commissioner Moran would spend $50,000 out of pocket without having any confidence that it would be covered by the city council, and also not following any procedure here that we're aware of. Like, that seems bananas to me.
A minimum of $50,000 at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yes. If you look at the resolution, it says this authorizes them. This is not the first. It indicates that this authorizes them for additional legal expenses through this guy.
Also, I just want to say that the hourly rates of my attorney, I believe Commissioner or Mayor Kelly's attorney, I believe Chief Crook's attorney, was all in the ballpark of like $300 an hour, maybe $375 an hour. So this is 4 times as much.
I do want to point out. So sorry if I'm interrupting, Robin. I do want to point out, and I get along with Commissioner Sungvi, and I only have very limited information, so I want to be judicious in any criticism. However, she is the one that pushed hard very recently to cap expenses. Yes, I can approve this if we all agree, no more. Yet here, this resolution, John, is essentially an open check. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, you guys, we just had Commissioner Madigan weigh in, and she said, yes, it is quotes for RFPs. And that's from someone who was on the city council for a decade plus. So she knows more than I do.
Yeah. The thing also that is shocking and disturbing, which is directly related to this, is in the course of the discussion, the mayor tried to point out that these kinds of issues should have been discussed initially at the pre-agenda meeting, at which time questions could have been asked about all these things, like, what's the story with how you hired this person, how much is it, what's the scope, all that stuff. Dylan has announced at the meeting, and this is just unbelievable. He dismisses the idea that there would be any significant discussions at the pre-agenda meeting anymore. He is done with that.
So can I just quickly, again, sorry, interrupt and just explain to people what the pre-agenda meeting is, because I'm going to totally admit here that when we had our first pre-agenda meeting, when I was on the city council, I rolled in like 5 minutes late. I thought it was going to be literally like a meeting in like a meeting room just with like us and our deputies, where we talked about what we were going to do the next day. I had no idea it was actually a public meeting that followed all the open meeting laws, and it basically mimics a city council meeting in every respect, in that there can be public comment and that you go through everything on the agenda as you would the following day at the city council meeting. So it is really a valuable tool to understand where there might be questions or conflicts, so that during the city council, you're not having these long arguments, debates, discussion. You're not looking for information that you don't have. It's just a very valuable tool, and it's something that the public can attend and watch. And so it happens on Monday mornings, the day before city council meetings. So it's a super important tool. And having a debate or an argument at pre-agenda is no different than having a debate or argument at the council table in terms of visibility and the public knowing or watching.
Right. Although Dylan, his one argument was that it doesn't happen, it happens during the working week.
Right. Well,
he accused the mayor. He made an accusatory statement to the mayor. Maybe if you'd said it at a time when people weren't working, which is
this just in. At 7 p.m. on Tuesday nights, I've got 4 kids. I'm supposed to be like, feeding, bathing, getting ready for school the next day. There's no time that's going to be great for everybody. And the kind of benefit of technology is that if you can't watch it on Monday morning at 9:30 or whatever, they throw up the video before the city council meeting, so you can watch it at your leisure before the council meeting.
Yeah, and also let me share with the viewers here. The basic concept here is people can get clarification. Council members can get clarification about resolutions that have been offered by the different council members. Okay, so this is an opportunity, rather than have all of this happen at the regular meeting, where often they don't have the document. You're now preparing them by saying, I need that document in order to address this. Okay,
Right.
That's really fundamental. And that's what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to give the members of the council the opportunity to raise any concerns that they have so that everybody is prepared for the evening meeting. And basically, friends, Manita Sangvi and Dylan Moran just routinely do not provide information, and it's ambush. The whole purpose here is to be able to ambush at the meeting because nobody else has any information. I'm also, I know Dan is more generous than I am about this stuff, but I'm also really skeptical. She had a doctor's appointment, and that she knows that this meeting is happening long in advance. Okay, she had a doctor's, and Dylan didn't show up. Neither of them showed up for the meeting because, friends, they knew this was a hot potato, and they wanted to keep this as secret as possible until the council meeting, so nobody would be prepared. I know that's accusatory and it's skeptical, but given what happened that night, and given the substance of what we've discussed, the dots really line up.
Well, I'm just going to say, as someone who watches all these city council meetings and who looks for the agenda regularly before the council meetings, it's not like this is a one-off. There have been a lot of times where Commissioner Moran and Commissioner Songvi, their agenda items aren't uploaded. Like, there's no link to click on. You don't know what it's going to be until the actual night of the meeting. It's really frustrating. And it's actually something that Mayor Kim expressed a lot of frustration about at the end of his term. Like, he, as I recall, he was like, why can't we get this right? Everything needs to be uploaded. Like, we're always missing information. We can't get these pre-agenda meetings even right. And so it's not like this is an observation that, is new or, I don't know. It seems intentional. There's something that seems intentional about it.
If I could jump in here and yeah, John, I'm hesitant to, because I have less information than you. And I do have a certain fondness for Commissioner Sungvi, but let me at least say the optics here are horrible, right? They're really bad. And to the extent that something is, as you're implying, John, really bad and secretive and so forth, I want to say to her, why are you exposing yourself for Dylan Moran? He's maybe he's sinking and he's bringing you down with him. The optics here are terrible, just terrible, and maybe worse.
I agree. And but back to Sangvi also is she brought this to that evening at 6:44, which is 16 minutes before the meeting. She sent an email out to her colleagues on the council saying that she was adding an agenda item for amending the city's purchasing procedures. And her rationale for this was that she needed, it was an emergency, she needed to address something in order to deal with the new parking program. Okay, this was her rationale. Well, let me offer two additional items about this. A, how long, friends, have we known that they're doing this parking thing? How is it that 16, she only is able to raise this issue that she needs action on 16 minutes before the meeting? But worse is what she failed to mention is there are many other items that are being changed in the resolution that she offered. Okay, so this wasn't just a matter of parking. And I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys.
I can fill in that blank because I just have one comment there, which was that as I was listening to this somewhat long meeting last night, towards the very end, when we're on the Department of Public Safety's agenda, I did hear Commissioner Songvi criticize Commissioner Cole for uploading something late to the agenda and encouraging him to try to not do that in the future. And I just was like kind of doing a little head scratch because I'm like, didn't you just do the same exact thing? Like, let's practice what we preach. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And the other thing, it comes back to me. The other thing is that Dylan Moran's response to all of this is, oh, let's just pass this. And, the members of the council have had 16 minutes before the meeting to review all this. Let's just pass this. And then if there's a problem with anything that gets passed, we'll deal with it later on. I mean, my God.
That's crazy.
He's awful. He does things like that a lot, right? He just wants to disregard the law, disregard procedure, disregard a lot of things, just get what he wants. Can we talk about the merits, John, because you wrote about this on your blog, Saratoga Springs Politics, the merits of giving them a representation in this stage. And John, here's where you and I may disagree. I think using proper procedure with proper levels of payment, not Manhattan, but Saratoga County attorneys, both Commissioner Moran, from what I know, and I know very little, but I think that's almost the way you have to do it. They should be represented at this stage if they're being because if they might have stepped outside of the law, that can be done later. I think they should be represented, but with proper procedure at a rate of typical rate of $250, $300 an hour or something, not $12.50 an hour. I do think they should be represented.
Well, let me respond by saying, I agree with you, but I would just say that my understanding of the law, and this is one of the things that I believe Brandy is suing over, is that there's a difference between civil and criminal matters, and the issue is in the case of Andrew Cuomo and Joe Bruno, they paid for their legal bills themselves, because the law says that if they are found innocent in a criminal investigation, as compared to civil, everything else in the past has been civil. Okay, this is a criminal investigation. In the event that they are found innocent, or the charges are dropped or whatever, then they are reimbursed, which they have been, or I guess Bruno's estate, that they are reimbursed. But there's a question as to whether or not the taxpayers are responsible for doing this. Now, Joe Bruno and Andrew Cuomo have a lot of money, and
I was just gonna say that's
my empathy is yes, we should do this, but I think there should be a motion or a clause that says, friend, if you're found guilty of these charges, you owe the city. I mean, the idea that you have broken the law and the city has paid thousands of dollars to defend you, and you're guilty of it, I think that's a different thing. I don't have a simple solution. I think they're right, but that's problematic.
This is not new territory, right? Other cities, state government have gone through this, so we should have. If Mike Brandy does indeed sue, there's probably going to be some noteworthy case law on it.
I'm going to throw up a couple comments here, guys. We've got a comment from Gail LaSalle. So let me get this right. Dylan wants $50K with no documentation. Yes, voted no twice last night to invoices for public safety because they weren't. He voted no last night. That's true.
I forgot about that.
Yes. So we'll explain this, guys, in a sec. And then hold on. She continues and took great pains to scold Commissioner Cole in public, grandstanding at its finest. Then we have another comment from Commissioner Madigan. You can always call for a special city council meeting. For example, they could have had one today to deal with fees so the public has an idea of what passed last night with all the fees. That is completely true. You can call a special city council meeting at any time. So if there's an urgent matter, like, we're building these, ticketing things for the parking lots and we have to change purchasing policy, they could have had a special city council meeting to talk about it. And so that the public could have been informed. Just back to what Gail LaSalle.
Can I just say, sorry. Well,
no, go ahead.
Okay. So we have a whole other major issue to discuss, and it's very frustrating because there's so much more to say about what Saint and Moran did, but the media has failed utterly to cover what's going on with the AG. Right. Yeah. Could you put up some of the stuff?
I just want to quickly explain Gail LaSalle's comment, which was just that Commissioner Cole last night during the Public Safety Department's agenda was trying to get 2 invoices approved by the City Council, and Dylan Moran, Commissioner Moran, because I really do think you guys, point of just a little note here, I do think we should try to call them Commissioner such and such, because that is what their title is. That's what their office is. So I would just encourage us to, call them Commissioner Songby, Commissioner Moran. But Commissioner Moran voted no to 2 of these invoices. He would not pay the public. He did not want to pay the invoices for public safety because he claimed they weren't submitted correctly. Which was kind of astonishing, because I can't recall the last time. I think the last time they anyone voted against paying a public safety invoice was back when Commissioner Montanino was on the council, and they decided to, kind of stonewall him. Sorry, I have a kid encroaching here, you guys. 1 second. Sorry.
I just fought off a cat and a dog.
Yeah. What is it? Okay. Sorry. Carry on. So this, you wanted to send me some documents from the AG's report. This is page 1.
All right. Would you read what's highlighted there?
Oh my God, I left leaning in really, really, really close.
I can try, Robin, if you can't.
Oh, I can. Okay. All right. Sorry, you guys. I'm super close to the screen. The AOD would restrict the city of Saratoga Springs, the SSPD, and those acting in concert with them from seeking criminal charges for most non-violent violations of law. There's none. Okay.
What we're looking at here, viewers, this is the proposal submitted by the Attorney General to the city of Saratoga Springs for an agreement to follow restrictions that they want to put on the city. Okay, it's a proposal. Now, what this says is the demonstrators are above the law regarding anything that's not a misdemeanor or a felony. And there's lots of violations like disorderly conduct, blocking the streets. We'll discuss all those things further. But the important thing here is this is stunning. They're saying the city cannot charge demonstrators for anything below a misdemeanor. It's unbelievable. I mean, Dan, we have laws. Do you have
thoughts on this?
Sorry?
I'm just wondering, with Dan, with your law enforcement background, like, what are your thoughts reading that?
I guess I'd want to read the whole thing, and I'm not as well versed on this issue. Let me just say, and John, you may not appreciate this, but I don't think this is a good attorney general for a lot of reasons. However, it is the office of attorney general. And just like I thought it was crazy that Mayor Kim and Commissioner Montanino got in a pissing match with the district attorney over the shooting on Broadway and so forth, I don't want to get bullied either. I get that. We should not get bullied. We should stand up right. But we should find a way to resolve this. And I'm not saying roll over. And you're right. That is a strong concern. But I do not want to get in a protracted legal battle with the attorney general that has endless resources, and we don't. So sorry if I'm waffling, but that's where my head's at.
Well, do you want me to put up page 2 here?
I kind of understand that, but when you start going through the kind of things that she's demanding, I think, and I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the police department to be able to operate, because people should understand this is a blanket. This isn't just BLM. Okay, this is anybody who wants to demonstrate in Saratoga Springs. This is the Proud Boys. This is a biker gang, whatever. Okay, this is such a problematic document. But if we could go on with the other pages here, can you?
Page 2.
What was this?
This is page 2, and the red line is tickets, alleged violations of Saratoga Springs ordinances that purportedly require individuals to give notice to the city before engaging in First Amendment protected activity. Then the second red line is the proposed AOD would prohibit the SSPD from seeking criminal penalties against protesters in such circumstances where there is no reported violence or significant property. Oh, John, you frozen? Am I frozen?
You're not.
Okay, hold on.
You broke up on my phone.
Oh, sorry. This looks like it's actually from the last page. It's titled page 2, but I think it might be the last page.
No, I don't think it is. No.
Oh, okay. So did you hear me read those red lines?
Just the beginning.
The last one is the proposed AOD would prohibit the SSPD from seeking criminal penalties against protesters in such circumstances when there was no reported violence or significant property damage.
Yeah. So let's go on because you'll see.
Okay. So then we've got, hold on here. The SSPD shall accommodate the demonstration, even if the demonstration temporarily blocks vehicles or pedestrian traffic or otherwise obstructs public streets or sidewalks. In those circumstances, SSPD, as approved and directed by the police chief or the chief's designee, may employ officers who may solely reroute vehicular or pedestrian traffic away from the protest. Then C, no mass arrest shall be made at this tier. SSPD officers shall not conduct an arrest unless there is individual probable cause to believe that the person has committed a felony.
A felony, mind you.
Felony.
Okay. So Dan,
boy, that and you point out, John, that takes out misdemeanors.
Yeah, as it does.
Is the city represented?
Sorry.
The
expertise. Oh, sorry.
You guys, I have to mind my P's and Q's on what I say here, but I just want to say, if I, Robin Dalton, I'm going to cursing alert coming up. If I have a really fucking bad day and I want to get all my friends together and I'm going to march through Broadway and just scream at people because I've had a fucking bad day and no traffic can go down Broadway, say it's the middle of the summer, I'm blocking pedestrian traffic and I'm just screaming, I'm, hurling water bottles, I'm doing whatever, I'm pissed off. I'm allowed to do that at my leisure. And the SSPD's only response can be rerouting everyone around my tantrum.
Dan and Robin, that's what this is.
It's crazy.
They have been given. So, and there's more. There's more. What's at the bottom?
Okay, let's see. Oh, well, here. So hold on. I went to the next page. So the bottom says that in my little metaphor here, if I commit anything that is not a felony, like if I commit any misdemeanor crime, the SSPD cannot intervene. I'm not super familiar with what are misdemeanor crimes. So maybe Dan, you can fill me in on that. I don't really know what I would do that would be a misdemeanor, but could you give me an example maybe of something that
simple assault is a misdemeanor,
Simple assault. So maybe I'm going down the sidewalks and the streets with my friends and we're all pissed and someone doesn't step aside on the sidewalk. I can just freaking elbow them or freaking backhand them to get out of my way.
This would exclude DWI. DWI at most levels is a misdemeanor. So you couldn't arrest a drunk driver. Listen,
so not only am I going to go down the street with my friends, but I'm going to have some of them drive drunk in their cars around me too.
What we should acknowledge though here, John, and you've got insight into this, is when the Attorney General did their previous report that looked like they scrambled the night before it was due, the term paper was due. They were asleep at the wheel for 2-3 years. Finally got it done. Now though, it seems like their attention is focused on Saratoga Springs. It's a different focus from the Attorney General's office here. Why doesn't the city have, and we're talking about legal fees, but I think these would be legal fees well spent, a very experienced counsel, maybe even a lobbyist, to advise the city and represent the city. I don't know that they have counsel representing him other than Mr. Izzo, but he's got a lot on his plate, and this is not his forte. They should, and it won't be a $250 an hour attorney. It'll be expensive, but money well spent. Who is representing the city? In other words, who is representing us in this matter, in the negotiations concept is what I'm talking about, because this could turn into litigation.
I agree. And let me just say that Tim Cole raised that last night, and he raised the issue that, the city needs to do this as soon as possible. Dylan
to get representation. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part.
Well, Tim feels very strongly, Commissioner Cole feels very strongly that we need to get a high quality, experienced attorney to represent us in all of this stuff.
Okay, yeah, I fully agree. I didn't realize he had pointed that out.
But when this was raised, Dylan Moran said, well, the problem here also, though, is that the majority of this council disagrees, the 3 members, with the 2 other council members. And he basically said, we want more control over all this.
Can I throw up the last page here? Because I'm just kind of curious at this point what's on it.
Well, let's go on with the.
Okay. So this last section, the highlighted portion says, the SSPD shall accommodate the demonstrations, even if the demonstration temporarily blocks vehicular or pedestrian traffic or otherwise obstructs public streets or sidewalks.
Is this the last document that you have?
Yeah, I believe that's the last document I have.
Oh, okay. Well, there were some other ones because they rule out the use of the police cannot have police on horseback trying to deal with crowds.
No bicycles.
They cannot have officers on bicycles involved with any of this. Demonstrators are allowed to throw water bottles. That is considered they cannot be penalized for that.
Well, that would rise to the level of a felony, right? So like anything that's not a felony doesn't, you can't take action on. Isn't that kind of like what I just read now?
That's basically it. And also there's a whole thing about the city council. They're allowed to express themselves at the city council, and the city is not supposed to do anything to preclude that, which you know what that means. I mean, that's giving them open to disrupt our council meetings.
I'm so confused because doesn't that seem? Aren't you allowed to limit the public comment to a certain period of time? Aren't you just required to offer the ability to public comment?
I can only say I'm sorry. I didn't get the document to you. All I can say is this was written by Alexis Figueroa. I mean, it is like it basically gives broad latitude for demonstrators to do pretty much anything. They can disrupt our council meetings. They can disrupt our streets. It's hard to believe. It is really, reading the document was a jaw dropper. And what's really distressing is the media covered, did a story. A couple of the media did a story on the cover letter. Nobody has done a story on the rest of this stuff. Which is, and by the way, it was leaked. The document was leaked to the media. We don't know who.
That's what I wanted to bring up, is that this document, this is the first time I'm seeing this document. It was leaked to the media, which I believe Commissioner Cole mentioned in his agenda, because he said, that makes it infinitely harder to do these negotiations. But here's my stupid question. What's an AOD? Is this just a document that we're negotiating off of? What is it?
Yeah, an AOD is a assurance. What is
agreement?
Yeah, it was in the first paragraph there.
It basically is
the very first paragraph.
It's
assurance of discontinuance.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a assurance of discontinuance. Okay, I gotcha.
So I mean, basically, it's kind of like, Dan, I think it's kind of like a consent order. I mean, the city signs and agrees it's going to do all this stuff. I think that's what this is, isn't it? I think.
Sweet.
Let me say something here.
Yeah.
They do identify this as a draft. And again, going to what I earlier said, we do not want to get deeply involved in litigation. We don't want to roll over, but it's a draft. It's something to work off of. It's
right.
We will have a counter draft if the city does the right thing, hires a competent attorney, probably out of Albany, that has experience in this, and quite frankly, has a relationship with the Attorney General's office, because this is a negotiation at this point. If the city is prudent here, we have to negotiate with the Attorney General's office. We can't just, put our back up and fight, screw you, sue us. No, that would be really poor, imprudent way to go. But we need the right representation.
Dan, we're on the same page. We're on the same page.
So I'm an idiot, because if I had read the first paragraph of this, it would have explained it. But I think reading this first paragraph is kind of important. The New York State Office of the Attorney General offers the attached draft announcement of discontinuance as an offer of compromise to resolve the OAG's published a report detailing evidence of the city of Saratoga Springs On February 21st, 2024, the OAG, on February 21, 2024, the OAG published a report detailing evidence the city of Saratoga Springs' official policy of retaliatory arrests against protesters in violation of their First Amendment rights. Based on that evidence, the OAG concluded that it could prevail in a civil rights lawsuit against the city of Saratoga Springs. In our previous meetings, you have indicated the city's willingness to resolve this matter by agreeing to an AOD. So that's like a little concerning, that language. Not gonna.
Well,
not gonna
let me, back, to both of you. I, one of the things though that is troubling is that Dylan made it quite clear at the meeting that, for example, he doesn't believe that the city should enforce the demonstration declaration for BLM, just for BLM, not for anybody else, not for BLM, because they were agreed. But so my concern, Dan, is what instructions and direction is this attorney that we should hire?
Cliffhanger. John, we lost you. I get his point. The dysfunctional process within City Hall, even if we get a great attorney, how do we get to negotiate to the level of negotiation, knowing that the whole city's on the same page as to where they are if the city council can't agree? I think he makes some sense. But still, they have to go forward here. Oh,
he's back.
I'm sorry, Dan. I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Oh, I was trying to finish your sentence because we lost you for about 40 seconds there.
Yeah.
I was trying to, what I thought what you were saying, which was prudent, is how does this dysfunctional city council get on the same page that we can even work with it? But the first thing to do would be hire an attorney that's good, because then he can knock some sense into the city council and say, well, like, that's a no-go. You're crazy. And so it has to be a tough person that will push the city where we need to be.
What I want to touch on for a quick second here, though, is in a dialogue back and forth between Commissioner Cole and Commissioner Moran. What Commissioner Moran seemed to suggest is that we should give certain organizations a pass in terms of filling out the form for an announcement of the declaration, the permit, essentially, that form. And Commissioner Cole, honestly, I thought it was Commissioner Cole's best showing at any city council meeting, at how he was able to engage in this discussion last night, because he has so much professional knowledge and he delivers it in a professional manner. And essentially what he said in response was, what we hear from, our DA or AG or whoever, which is that you prosecute people without fear or favor. Right. So it's like you can't have one standard for one group and another standard for another group. You apply the law equally across the board, whatever that law may be. And I think Commissioner Cole was troubled, as I was, by the idea that we would give certain organizations a pass because of their relationship with city council members or their previous relationship with the city.
Yes, valid points. But this document, in my view, and I hope the Attorney General's office is doing it, it's an opening draft. It's an opening proposal from them. And it's nothing more than that.
But so Commissioner Moran also said, though, that he was very frustrated that he wasn't included in these conversations. And for me, the last thing that I want is one of our elected politicians whose motivation is to further their own, interests in politics, representing the city to the Attorney General. That's crazy to me.
But there has to be a system, I believe, where all five commissioners are involved here. Maybe not directly.
Why?
Not
directly.
Why
the commissioners involved? I don't understand why we want the commissioners involved at all. What the hell do they know about this?
Because I think they're not going to approve something, right? This will have to be approved at the city council. Ultimately, if we're agreeing to this in the end, how do you not give them some buy-in early? You get them to get some early buy-in and come to. It's just because Commissioner Moran believes one thing doesn't mean that's what's going to happen there.
Yeah, but I have to say I disagree. I think the only person who should be involved in these negotiations is an attorney with the expertise that, like you guys said, and then also Commissioner Cole. And once Commissioner Cole and the Public Safety Department, who this is this is who this is addressing in this document. Once they've signed off on it, then it should go to the city council, and they should be like, okay, if the public safety department and that commissioner is okay with it, and our attorney is okay with this, then we'll sign off. But I don't want Tweedledee and Tweedledum weighing in. Why?
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It'd be great if they would let the attorneys alone go in and negotiate. Everything's tentative on their, on their client agreeing to it, client being the city. So they'd come out, walk out of the room with a tentative agreement. This is the best we could do. The AG moved here for us. They wouldn't move here. They wanted us to move here. We wouldn't, but we moved here. Here is but ultimately though, you don't want to present this for the first time at a city council meeting. I don't think you have to have some early buy-in into the process and so forth. I'm not a fan of Commissioner Moran. I used to be like 50-50, and now I see some good in him, but I'm not a fan anymore.
Wait, important note. We moved on.
We still need to be involved.
We moved on from the first issue of that $50,000 legal bill without telling people what happened, which was that Commissioner Songby pulled it from her agenda. So just so everyone knows, that $50,000 legal bill was not voted on last night. It was pulled from the agenda. Right. Just wanted to point that out. Sorry.
Dan, I would go back to you about this, and I'm really interested, given your experience. The readers may not know that were you the president of the union?
I was the president of the New York State Troopers PBA, then executive director and counsel to another statewide police union that dealt with state government. So I've been negotiating or dealing with state government for 20 years of my adult life.
Right. So
and I kind of view this as, even though it's different than a labor negotiation, because the AG's office has a gun to our head right now.
Right.
Let's acknowledge that. I don't want to mean that we roll over, but let's acknowledge that we do not want to get into this litigation. An agreement that we can live with is better than endless litigation.
I agree, but Dan, I what bothers me is the extreme stuff in this. I understand. I'm concerned about the AG's office and where they're coming from, because it just strikes me looking at this. I mean, their initial proposal was very reasonable in what it was asking the city to do. The original one, it had like 7 points, and they were all very reasonable.
Yeah.
What concerns me, Dan, is I just can't. I'm shocked that thoughtful attorneys sat down and produced this document, Dan. It's got typos. I mean, it's just. But aside from that stuff, I just think that these are really extreme, Dan. That these are.
It's a proposal. It's an initial proposal, is the way I look at it. Yeah, you're right, but it's kind of like when we used to do labor negotiations. The union would come in and say, we want $1 million. And the state would come in and say, we want to reduce your salaries by 10%. Both of them were appalling to each side, right? But, but the reality is each side's going to get something here if it's done appropriately. Each side will get some of what they want, but not everything. So the extreme things there, God, I hope they don't end up there. At this stage, I'm ignoring that. And again, we don't want to be in such a position. Sorry.
No, I just want to throw up a quick comment. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Commissioner, now Supervisor Madigan, says Commissioner Cole has jurisdiction over SSPD and no one else on the city council. I love arguing charter, and so he, along with council, should work with AG. And then, she absolutely agreed with me. Thank you. I appreciate that, Commissioner / Supervisor Madigan. I think what she was referring to earlier about the commission form of government is that oftentimes that is invoked as an excuse as to why things have happened or haven't happened. And in this instance, I don't think it has anything to do with who was talking to the AG. I don't think we can blame that on the commission form of government, but anyhow.
Well, I would just say that I'm inexperienced in terms of this stuff. I'm encouraged to hear Dan's remarks because, when I read this thing, it just strikes me as so wild that it was very disturbing to me. But
you could be correct though, John. They could be hell bent on getting exactly what they wrote. I don't know that. I would hope
also,
not.
You guys, can I just say one other thing? In the initial Attorney General report, right? Those 7 items that they put forward, I also thought were incredibly reasonable and should happen.
Right.
My confusion is that some of them haven't happened. Like, for example, we had a civilian review board that was like a point of pride for many people running for office. It was something that I tried to propose and was told, no, let's kick it to the next council. The next council did it. They put it together. They have a chairperson, Kristen Dart. It was active for a couple of months. The last meeting they had, I think, was in September. And a large part of those 7 points from the previous AG's report was the importance of having a regularly scheduled civilian review board and soliciting engagement and participation from the community to make that civilian review board work. So if I'm the AG and I'm continuing to have these frustrations with Saratoga Springs, why isn't that addressed? Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that that civilian review board stopped operating back in September. Like why? Because to me, those are much more significant and productive things for us to be doing rather than be micromanaged the way this document is trying to micromanage the police department.
Well, I repeat what you said about the civilian review board. I'm sorry, I missed that.
One of the points in the Attorney General's 7 recommendations to us based on their first report, right, was that we continue to have a civilian review board that really makes a great effort to engage and participate with the public, but that we have an active civilian review board. And they have not had a meeting since September. So
September of last year, of
yes.
10 months ago?
Yes. So why is that not a problem?
I guess, Dan, the thing
were they only supposed to meet when there was a complaint, or would they meet on proactive things?
It was supposed to be months a month. And then there were a couple occasions, like the September meeting, where they were like, we don't have any complaints. And we're, I think they were formalizing their policies and procedures for the CRB. But that's when it just kind of like ended. Nothing ever happened. And so like, if I'm the AG's office and I'm looking at Saratoga Springs and what's going on, that's what I'm going to be addressing before I start trying to write new language to micromanage how we respond to a protest or demonstration. But
is that board filled concurrently by the new council? Do they reappoint, or is it for terms?
There were people already serving a term on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, John, you were going to say something.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is I'm not blind to racism in this country, and I am not blind to excesses committed by police in this country. But I find it just hard to get my head around. I think we have an outstanding police department. I think they are really dedicated to service. The criticisms of them have been largely around the death of Darrell Mount. But when it comes to actual problems with things that the police have done, it's all around stuff that to some extent was provoked by BLM. I mean, it's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy here. I don't personally, friends, I don't think we have a real problem with our police department. I really don't. I think there are no complaints. Well, I'm sure there are some complaints, but I mean,
if there were complaints, presumably the civilian review board would be meeting to discuss them.
Right.
That's a really valid and timely point, Robin.
Thank you.
Right. So I really, how Saratoga Springs has become the focus of all of this, you'd think from reading the media that this is like a racist city in which Black people walk with fear down Broadway. And as I say, in the end, the issues that have filled the report, there's like nothing about any violations beyond the stuff involved with demonstrations. Not that that's not insignificant, not that it doesn't need to be addressed. Okay. And we can always do better, but this thing just seems to me, Dan and Robin, out of all proportion.
I agree. And a quick aside here, but it's related.
Yeah.
Just about 24 hours ago, a Saratoga Springs police officer on Geyser Road at a traffic stop had the motorist take off on him, and he was dragged by the car, had to be rushed to Albany Med. I know it's not life-threatening at this point, but I won't comment further on his condition because I don't have enough to comment. But it could have been a couple inches away from death or debilitating injury. And I still don't know that it wasn't debilitating. I just know it's not life-threatening at this point. But how horrible that could have been. Cars are more dangerous than guns, and for police officers, more. There used to be a statistic where more cops were killed by motor vehicle accidents or vehicle pedestrian accidents than actual guns. I think that's changed over the years, but it still shows you how dangerous these jobs are. And we've forgotten about that with all the politics and the AG report and so forth.
Guys, unfortunately, I have to go. I have a 1:30 appointment. I don't mean to end this. I feel like we're ending the discussion in the middle of the discussion, but I just want to conclude by saying that when I read this document and when I think about protests and why this document gives me pause, I am not thinking about any particular group. I am simply thinking about moments that I witnessed when Broadway was completely shut down to motorists and pedestrians because it was overtaken by a group that was protesting. What they were protesting for, I don't give a shit about. Who they are, I don't give a shit about. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I just think about what the effects were on our ability to maintain law and order. That's it. And also keep the people safe who are demonstrating, because we've seen around the country that protesters have been killed or seriously injured because a motorist got frustrated and just gunned it. I mean, it's scary. So you want everyone to stay protected. So I just wanted to stress that when I read this, I really don't think of a particular cause, a particular group. And I also ironically would like to point out that I did work for the ACLU. And so, I just find it all really troubling. But I'm going to have to put a pin in it, guys, because I have to go. I have to be somewhere in.
Yeah, we're at an hour anyway. We never did get a chance to talk about short-term rentals. We got to follow up on this attorney, the assignment of attorney and so forth. That's a big issue that's going to be ongoing.
Yeah, and the paid parking stuff we want to talk about. So maybe we'll do a sequel, a part 2 tomorrow, or we'll figure something out.
All right. Thank you both.
All right. Thank you, John. We appreciate you.
Okay.
Bye.
Dan, I'm sorry I got a bolt.
No problem. Take care.
Right.
Thanks for watching, folks. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Thank you.